of science.
Greg, how about in your experience?
Okay, I've had just one parent approach me privately, but then...
In 30 years of teaching?
Well, I didn't teach biology. I taught physical science primarily at the middle school level, so it was a different situation for me. But it came up occasionally just because kids see it in the news and they'll bring it up. In the textbooks, when they do, I just point out, well, how's your textbook read? Well, it says it is thought that, or perhaps this occurred, and that's how it reads. And I said, well, what does that mean? It just means they don't know. And I said, so what you have here is a story that's being made up to explain what they don't know. And you're being asked to believe the story. As you go on in the textbook, then it's as if it's fact. And so I point that out to them, that there are these issues, and not, I was unafraid in that I said one of them is intelligent design, and so we talked about that a little bit, but it did it in an objective way, not in a dogmatic way. And I just tried to show them in the textbook it's as John said, it's one track only allowed, and that's the material explanations.
In October 2005, Popular Science magazine listed their top 10 worst jobs in science. And Kansas biology teacher came in at number 3 behind human lab rat and manure inspector. Has this conflict, Steve, altered the way people in Kansas view scientists and the interest of young people in becoming scientists?
I don't think it's altered within Kansas anything at all. Kansans are very practical people and pretty straightforward in their views, and it's more a perception from the outside of Kansas. I know a lot of Kansas biology teachers. We're very active members of the Kansas Association of Biology Teachers, and they're outstanding teachers, and they do a great job, and honestly, they love their work, which is really similar to the nature of science. Science researchers, science teachers are very passionate about what they do, and they really love their work. So we all laugh when that came up as number 3 because, there's the elements that are difficult or hard to deal with, but no, it's not a bad job, and nor has it altered our perception about what we do.
But for all the headlines, Eric, did you feel in all of those years of teaching, since this has boiled up, any pressure, any ridicule as a science teacher teaching biology in the public schools?
I don't think so either. I think I'd agree with Steve that it's probably more of a nationwide perspective that you might feel that. But I know the same people that he's talking about, and we are passionate about what we're doing and enjoy teaching students.
Now, at the time of the controversy in Kansas, 6 Kansas college and university presidents, including KU Chancellor Robert Hemingway, warned that it will set Kansas back a century and give hard-to-find science teachers no choice but to pursue other career fields. Has that really happened, Steve?
That would be very difficult to tell. I know that this perception of Kansas has been a problem. It's been a problem for the universities in attracting faculty, both in the working environment it creates. Researchers are concerned about how the community perceives them and the work that they do. Most scientists do the work that they do to advance society, to help feed people, to improve our crop yields, work on animal health, cure diseases, and yet they're being perceived as somehow evil and doing something wrong. And they honestly don't want to come and work in that environment. Their other concern is where are their children going to go to school, because they want to be a part of the community and raise their children here.
John.
One of the reasons for the perception is that when these controversies arose at the Kansas school board level, an organization called Kansas Citizen for Science developed strategies to explain to the public that if you adopt objective evolution standards, that's going to drive students out of the state, business out of the state, and students aren't going to be able to get accepted in even Kansas colleges. And this was nothing more than propaganda, and it's been picked up by the media, and it's sort of created a firestorm that's not really there. It was absolutely silly, but that propaganda has been repeated over and over by the media.
Do you want to respond to that, Steve?
Well, I wouldn't be the first to defend the media, however.
Of course you would.
Of course I would. However, there was a company that in the '98 controversy did leave the state, and the CEO specifically said that that's why they were leaving. It was a biotech company. And, marketing the bioscience effort in this area is complicated because marketing is all about perception. So the reality of this is there in our attraction
but
of
even
economic
through
development.
even through all of this, all of these years of the polarizing positions, the changes in position of the State Board of Education, isn't it true that not one day did these changes in the science standards actually go into effect in the state of Kansas?
Oh no, they did go into effect for a year. Actually, I dispute your timeline a little bit earlier. From 99 to 2000, we had young Earth creationist science standards in the state, which is not intelligent design.
But Eric just said it made no difference to the way he's been teaching.
To my local school district.
And
it
that
may have had an effect in other parts of the state.
Well, and see, that's a misunderstanding about standards and how standards break down into curriculum. Curriculum is a local decision. Standards are a statewide kind of 30,000-foot view of what it means to be scientifically literate. And it's up to local districts then to implement a curriculum that's the specific instruction program around that.
Okay, we have lots of calls coming in at this moment, so we're going to be taking your calls again. We're looking for questions, not huge political rambling statements, ladies and gentlemen, with the utmost of respect. We do go first, though, to Jean, who is in Lawrence. Your question, please.
My question is, why can't people agree that God created human beings who created evolutionary theory?
Who can answer that question for us? Steve?
Well, I used to be a religion teacher. I taught in a Catholic school for several years, several grades of religion and science. And I think it's a religious question. There are non-deist religions around the world, and those folks are practicing science. And I don't think there's, for the most part, disagreement about God and a creator God. And I think the majority of people, and particularly this area, wouldn't dispute that.
John?
Well, the religious conflict is that evolutionary theory postulates a material cause, essentially random mutation, natural selection. So it's a random process at its core, a stochastic process. And so even if you have a deistic God, it's a God that's throwing the dice, and what comes up is not purposeful. And so a materialistic notion of origins robs human purpose. It robs humanity of inherent purpose, and that's the major conflict.
Eric?
I just think, the caller's question kind of speaks to our experience that parents really haven't had issues with this. And I think the thing is that most students as individuals, they know that we're teaching science. They know that we're not trying to teach faith. And they understand that these two concepts are not mutually exclusive in them as an individual. They may be to how science is carried out in the real world, but in terms of an individual, these ideas are not mutually exclusive.
Tanya from KCMO is now on the line. Your question, please, Tanya.
Yes, I was wondering, where did the energy come from that supposedly caused the Big Bang Theory?
Scott?
I wish I had the answer to that one, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think anyone here is qualified to answer a question of that magnitude.
If we were, we'd win a Nobel Prize.
That is true.
That is an active area of research, and wouldn't that be interesting to
Tanya,
know?
I think we're going to have to fire our panel and bring in one that can answer your question. We'll be doing that on the next round of our conversation on evolution. We do have Tom, though, in Kansas City. Tom, your question, please.
Sure. I was wondering whether John believed that the Bible was a divinely revealed Word of God, and if so, is that not an equivalent unproven theory?
Well, I think you have to sort out science from religion. And as scientists, explanations are limited to what the data reasonably infers. And so as a scientist, we're not looking at the data. We're not having our investigation driven by a religious text. We're having it driven by the data, the evidence. And my concern is that origin science, the science that seeks to explain where life comes from, is not a data-driven science. It's driven by a materialistic preconception. So we're not letting the data lead us. And so what we have here is, on one side, we have materialists that have an unyielding preconception. On the other side, we have biblical literalists that have a preconception. What's needed in origin science is strict scientific objectivity.